All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we would like to give all praise, honor, glory to
YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Rakabradash.
Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone and taught us the truth, and salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. And the elect begins with the 144,000. Yahawah, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jehovah. BAHASHAM is in the name. YAHAWASHI, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The Rakabradash is the Holy Spirit. We're the brothers of the great millstone Chicago camp. I'm the brother YAHAWAH. You joined with
the brother Shataya, the brother Asa,
the brother Yamaiva,
the brother Ibadia.
Come back at you, brothers and sisters of the household of faith of the Hope for Right Select with another lesson.
Khan.
And Lord, when we hope this lesson be edifying in the spirit and power, YAHAWASHI. Once again, we hope this lesson is edifying.
Water.
You know, as you can see the title, we're coming with the Genesis 1 breakdown, man, which is the beginning of creation, man. And which a lot of these pastors, they ultimately break down wrong, man. Because, hey, it's always important that we go into words, the meaning of words, and ultimately we just break these said things down, man. So these different tools are ultimately, the rule of the Bible for these up, man. That's why these different tools are ultimately important for us to break down these different words, man.
The Hebrew.
Yep, the Hebrew, But ultimately, let's just jump straight into it, man. Jeremiah, you want to read?
Genesis 1 and verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth.
Right, that's not right there. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? So that's why it's important to ultimately to jump into, the meaning of words, man. Because God in this particular chapter is going into the word Elohim. A brother can grab their phone real quick and go into the blue letter Bible, for the word of God in that chapter.
I got it. It is Strong's. Okay. So
Strong's H430, entry 1. Elohah.
It's actually Elohim.
Yeah, you gotta say it.
Yeah, you gotta say
Elohim.
That's that Yeti.
Yeah, that's that Yiddish. Yep. It's Elohim. Yep. That's the word Elohim, which makes it plural. Yom at the end makes it plural. Allah means power. Yom, makes it plural. So it ultimately talks about what? Powers. You actually can read it out or the definitions.
The outline of biblical usage, how the Bible uses the word: rulers, judges, divine ones, angels,
right?
Gods,
exactly right. Angels, powers. So ultimately, so it's from this point on, we're going to say powers, angels, divine ones, powers, angels. So read it again, not
Genesis. Genesis 1.
Yeah, Genesis 1:1. Read it again.
Genesis 1 and 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Right. It says in the beginning, the powers created the heaven and the earth. Right. YAHAWASHI and the angels. So give me John 1 and 1.
This John 1 and 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Right. It says in the beginning, going back to the creation, going back to Genesis 1 and 1, which we're reading, man. We're going back to the beginning. Who is the Word? The Word is YAHAWASHI. Ultimately what? Yahweh gave the blueprints to YAHAWASHI and ultimately the angels to create everything that we currently see, man. So read verse 1 again.
Genesis 1.
St. John 1 and 1.
Yeah, St. John 1 and 1. There's more to it.
Yeah, let's just read it again. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Mm-hmm. Read verse 2 too.
The same was in the beginning with God.
Right. The same was in the beginning with God. So who was in the beginning, man? The word being YAHAWASHI. Yahweh gave the blueprint to YAHAWASHI. YAHAWASHI created the name with the angels, and ultimately what? YAHAWASHI and the angels created everything that we see, man.
Right, so it's saying YAHAWASHI was with the gods. He was with the Elohim, and he was an Elohim. He was a God. He was a power.
That's right.
So we understanding the meaning of the word God, we know what that's talking about.
Because the Most High name, Yahweh wasn't mentioned until Genesis the 2nd chapter. You jump to Genesis 1 and 26.
This is Genesis 1 and 26. And the power said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth."
Right. Us, plural. Us. Going back to Genesis 1 and 1. Just basically lets you know it's more than one. More than one power. You had YAHAWASHI, you had the angels, ultimately creating everything, man. Plural. Us. Elohim, plural. Powers. Angels.
And the Allahayim, for those of you out there listening and learning, that's the 144. Okay, that's the Allahayim or Yahawah BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. That's the 144 of the Allahayim.
Yep.
The first fruits.
Khan.
Like the brother was saying, the first spirits created.
That's right.
So Yahawashi, Hamashiach, is the head of all of the gods, all the powers, all the angels.
That's right. Read verse 2.
John 1 and 2.
Khan.
Back in the Genesis.
Oh, back in Genesis.
Genesis.
Well, we should really read this.
No, you got it.
John 1 and 2. The same was in the beginning with the powers.
Right. The same was in the beginning with the power. So you had Yahawashi and the angels creating everything.
Verse 3, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made.
Right. So ultimately what? You know, Yahweh gave the blueprint to Yahawashi. Ultimately, Yahawashi created what? The angels. You know, the 144, as the elder brother Shatari said, and they ultimately created everything we see, man. Back in that Genesis 1 and 2.
Genesis 1 and 2. And the earth was without form and void. The darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved.
The spirit of the powers.
Moved upon the face of the waters.
Right. So you had everything in this elemental stage, man. You know, nothing was formed yet. You know, so ultimately you had the powers, you know, ultimately moving, you know, the space of the deep, and ultimately what? Everything was in this elemental stage. My brother can grab me Jeremiah 4, I believe it's
23.
Yeah, let the brother I'll read it. Read it. Give me Jeremiah 4 and 23.
In the Psalms. Does that Psalms go with this?
I was gonna bring that 33 out for 1 and 3. Genesis 1 and 3. You can bring that Psalms 33 and 6.
Yeah, I'm Luke.
Jeremiah 4 and 23. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Jeremiah
4 and 23.
23. Select your brothers. Jeremiah 4 and 23. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light.
Right. So ultimately going to the beginning, everything was in this elemental stage, you know, going into the beginning of creation, man. You know, nothing was formed yet, but ultimately everything was in this elemental stage, you know, and the powers are about to create everything that we currently see now. You got it up? Back in the Genesis?
Khan.
That was pretty much it on that.
Yes, sir.
Genesis 1 and 3. And God said, let there be. And power said, let there be light. And there was light.
Right. The first form of light was the illumination of the elements. You know, ultimately what? The elements ultimately glowing. That was the first form of light. And these Christian pastors will ultimately say that's the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon haven't been created yet.
Right.
So ultimately the illumination of the elements. You know, if you look at a deep space, you know, you will see, you know, tiny pieces of stars glowing, you know, for an example, man. You know, when you look out into deep space, what do you see?
Another example, because you know this was the first day, but the sun and the moon weren't created yet. So it's showing you that there was light already before the sun was created.
The first form of light, which is the illumination of the elements.
And if you ever just set out, like sometimes, you know, me and my wife used to sit out and you be on the lake, you know, over the water, and you look up, you could actually see it. I don't know the chemtrails and everything. It's so messed up, but I'm going years back when it was pretty clear still. You could see it, stars twinkling, comets. You could see it, how it was illuminated, and you could actually witness and see
it's
the Lord's order, His creation, right? Which they're trying to destroy.
Genesis 1 and 4. And power said, and power saw the light that it was good, and power said, and powers divided the light from the darkness.
Right, the powers that divided the light from the darkness. So you had one part of the universe that was light and one part that was dark. And I got a small, you know, video to indicate that. You know, that video we just saved up. Let me grab it real quick. You can read that as I'm getting it. You can read that again.
Yes,
Yeah.
I could read it. This Genesis 1 and 3. And the power said, let there be light, and there was light. And the powers saw the light that it was good, and the powers divided the light from the darkness.
Right. The powers divided the light from the darkness. So you had one part of the universe that was light and the other part that was dark. And this is a great video to also indicate that.
It says, verse 5, and the powers called the light day, and the darkness he called night.
Yep.
And the evening and the morning were the first day.
And while I'm actually going to play this video, brother, grab me 1 Peter 3 and 8. And this is actually a great depiction actually to show that one part light and one part dark. Yep. So going back to the Genesis 1, you have one part of the universe that was light and one part that was dark. And that video I just showed you was a great indicator of that.
This is 2 Peter 3 and 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day.
Right, 1,000 years is one day to the Lord, man. So ultimately, what? This was the first consecutive day of what? 1,000 years, man. You know, which is one day.
That's right, bro.
Are we back in that Genesis?
before
6.
Genesis.
Did you read 4? And I saw. Did you read 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
You read it again.
Are we 5 again? Genesis 1 and 5, and the powers called the light day, and in darkness they call light, called the night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
Right, as I showed that video, one part was dark and one part was light.
Psalms 140.
You know?
Grab Psalms 140.
And that's what? The first day, the first consecutive day of 1,000 years.
So,
Grab
which is one day.
104 and 20. And yeah, you can get that Psalms 33 and 6. Both of them perfect right now.
Psalms 36.
Let me get those verses.
I got Psalms 104.
And 20.
And 33 and 6. I got you, bro.
I got it.
This is Psalms 104 and 20. Thou makest darkness, and it is night,
Perfect.
wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth.
And that's letting you know, Yahawah BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, he created everything, okay? Linebacker with that Psalms 33 and 6 off of that.
Elder, Psalms 33 and 6 reads, by the word of the Lord Yahweh were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth.
Okay, so this is Yahawah BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. He's telling you, you know,
That's right.
Hey, it's his creation. This is his movie, man. His will is being done as it is in heaven and on earth, like it says, you know. So that's it, man. And we're going into his creation being formed right now. He's creating everything. It's a scripture in there that says before he did anything, he thought about everything. Which
And you got YAHAWASHI, and ultimately the angels got the blueprint from Yahweh, and
from the Father.
they're mapping out everything that Yahweh gave them.
Hey, that's why it says they saw that it was good.
Yep. Ultimately, according to what? The blueprint of Yahweh.
Of the Father,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
And that's their order. All things, that's their order. The Father, the Son, okay, on down.
So, Laki, this was verse 19, Psalms 104 and 19. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth.
You know, as the elder brother Shataria said, man, you know, we're going into the Lord's creation, you know, going into a day and night, you know, essentially, and we're going to touch upon, as we get towards that day 4, we're going to touch upon the sun and the moon, you know. But back to that Genesis, that's all you wanted, elder?
Yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Get that Genesis 1 and 6.
Genesis 1 and 6. And the power said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the water.
And right, that firmament being the ozone layer, you know, ultimately put a dividing line between space and ultimately everything under the earth, you know, which we call the ozone layer, which the so-called white man call the ozone layer, the Van Allen belt.
Right.
Genesis 1 and 7. And the powers made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so.
Right. So ultimately, what that dividing line, the ozone layer, the firmament, you know, the basic that dividing line, you know, basically from space and everything under the earth, man. You know.
Verse 8. And the powers called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
Right. So the second course of 1,000 years, so 2,000 years.
And what are you talking about? That firmament that Van Allen built, it's like a protective barrier to keep anything from coming in on the earth, meteors and things like that. But also to keep Esau meddling ass where he's supposed to be. He can't go nowhere else. You see what he did to this. So the Lord then fixed it where this as far as your ass gonna be able to go right here.
And it's a cut to them saying that they landed on the moon, man.
Right.
You know?
Direct cut. Because you can't get past that Van Allen belt. So how can you, you know, one great step for man, one giant step for mankind? Bullshit, man. That's what it is.
But the film production crew found a way to get there. The film production crew got there first.
Right.
Then they would let them know, man, we got a Shell station. You can refuel here and go on back home. You know? So, yeah. Straight fraud, brother.
Continuing in that Genesis, and the power said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so.
Right. So all the elements, you know, ultimately formed into what? Dry land. You know, the waters ultimately formulated into what we call dry land, which is the earth.
Verse 10, and the power is called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called they seas. And the power saw that it was good.
Right. So you had a piece of dry land called the earth. You had the sea surrounding it.
Verse 11, and the power said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose kind is in itself upon the earth. And it was so.
Whose seed is in itself.
Right.
It says whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. So everything had, you know, a seed. You know, ultimately, a orange seed grew an orange, an apple seed grew an apple. You know, henceforth, man.
And men have their seed too.
Men have seeds also, you know, and ultimately, what is the so-called white man doing? He making everything seedless, you know, things like that, which is a contrary to the creation of YAHAWASHI, man.
That's right.
Exactly.
And everything that the power was created, man.
That's right, brother.
On the behest of Yahweh, man.
Verse 12, and the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seeds after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And the power saw that it was good.
You know, that's what we were just saying, man. Orange seed brought forth an orange, apple seed brought forth an apple, henceforth, you know, ultimately a carrot seed brought forth a carrot, you know, henceforth, man.
And animals too.
Yeah, likewise,
Verse 13, and in the evening and the morning were the third day.
Right, so the third consecutive 1,000-year period, so 3,000 years.
Verse 14, and the power said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven divided to the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Now, that sounds like what? That sounds like a biblical calendar.
That's right.
You know, a biblical clock. And this is how our forefathers kept time back then. You know, they went by a lunar calendar.
Wow.
And what's that for? The Council of Nicaea, when the Emperor Constantine changed the calendar from a lunar calendar to a what? Gregorian solar calendar. Yeah, and see, that's that balance. Proverbs 11:4. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. That's why you got the sun and the moon. That's the balance, you know. You can't have good without bad. You can't, you know, have happy without sad. And you can't have light without having day. That's the balance of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Now, Psalm 74:16, and y'all got it. But yeah.
Read that verse 14 again.
All things are double. And he made nothing unperfect.
Sirach. That's it.
Read that verse 14 again in that Genesis.
Verse 14, and the power said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Right. You know, you got the sun, the moon, the stars, you know, which we're going to get into the sun and the moon. But ultimately, you got, you know, greater forms of light and ultimately weaker forms of light, man. And the greater form of light being the sun, and for the day, and ultimately for the night being the moon, which is a form of light.
And if I can, brother, Psalm 74:16 reads, the day is thine, the night also is thine.
Read that one more time.
Psalm 74:16 reads, the day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun.
That's it. And that pretty much breaks itself down right there, okay?
Everything done decently in order, El.
So you know that lines up with that Genesis he just read. How he said that it be a moon, you know what I'm saying, and a sun, okay? But we're finna go further into detail with that in a minute as we read the chapter.
All right, and these forms of light was created, it's going to get into it, but on this day was all the forms of light was created, Read verse 16, Jeremiah, and talking about the sun and the moon.
Come. Genesis 1:15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so.
So you got the stars, you got the different forms of light within the sky, some greater than others and things like that. But it's going to get into the two greater forms of light. Read.
Come. Verse 16, and the powers made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made also the stars also.
Yeah, and exactly right, man. And going back to verse 14, it says for seasons and for days and years, for signs and for seasons, for days and for years. Ultimately, when we see like a blood moon, for example,
right,
something that's going to happen. You see an eclipse,
right,
something something about to happen. You see a shooting star, something that's about to happen. Comet. So what it says for signs and days and years. You got it up.
This is Acts 2:19. And I will shew wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before that great and notable day of the Lord come.
Right. So ultimately, what the Lord has signs within the heavens. Hey, as I mentioned before, you will have a blood moon, you will have a comet, you will have an eclipse. These are different signs and wonders that the Lord showed in the heavens.
And that's perfect, because in that second Ezra 9th chapter, he said, measure thou the times diligently in itself, okay? Right. And this is how we, the men of the Lord, who see everything through a spiritual lens, measure the time through the prophecies, through the scriptures, okay? We know what's happening because we read, we study, and we're watchmen. We're watching and waiting, okay? Go ahead.
Verse 17.
Read verse 16 again.
So Genesis 1:16. And the powers made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made also, he made the stars also.
Right. So you got the greater one of the day, which is the sun, the greater one of the night, which is the moon, and ultimately a moon is a form of light also. Because they say that Esau, basically had that farce that he ultimately landed on the moon,
right? And
that's impossible. Because ultimately, what the moon is a form of light,
right? And we just told you that the firmament, the Van Allen belt was built, like I say, as a pretty much protected the earth where can't nothing meteors shooting me, could nothing come in. But most important, he knew this wicked ass Edomite to keep his ass right here where he at too, where he can't mess nothing else up. All right. He can't mess nothing up that the Lord can't fix back, but the Lord knew. He made him crooked, so he knew what he was going to do. So that's his limit. That's as far as he go. But that lie, you see, I just told you, he ain't never been on the moon. That's a bad-faced lie.
Come on, brother. Come on.
You got to hear Michael.
Come on. Verse 17. And they made
and the powers.
And the powers set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
Right. So what the powers, the angels, YAHAWASHI and the angels said what the sun and the moon and the firmament. So ultimately, one rule in the day, which is the sun, and ultimately one rule in the night, which is the moon. You continue that verse 18.
Verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And the power saw that it was good.
Right, to divide the light from the darkness, because in prior verses we read that way. Ultimately, one part was day and one part was night, but ultimately it's a dividing line now, because you got what? The sun and you got the moon.
Right.
One for the day and one for the night. And ultimately what? Those the day and the night being divided by the sun and the moon.
And that's that balance we're talking about. That's the balance of YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Like he gave you in Acts 2, where I said we're the watchmen, because we know when we see a comet, when we see a blood moon,
Mhm.
we know something is about to happen. This is Yahawah BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI revealing to us, something is going to happen. Okay.
Verse 19, in the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Right, the fourth consecutive period of 1,000 years, which is 4,000 years.
And the power said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven.
Right, so you ultimately what the creation of the creatures that brought forth abundantly from the waters, man. And man is also considered a creature. You know, and if you can grab that for me, I buy in that Romans 8, to give an example, because man is also considered a creature.
That's right.
This is Romans 8:20. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope.
Right, so man is also considered a creature, man. Just to make that point in verse 20.
Verse 21, and the powers created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And the power saw that it was good.
Right, so the waters brought abundantly birds, whales, cows, every living creature came from the waters, even man, because man was considered a creature.
Mm-hmm.
It says, and the power saw that it was good. Ultimately, according to the plan of Yahawah, which is the Father.
Verse 22, and the powers blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth.
And right, how do you ultimately multiply? By the way of sex, man.
Mm-hmm.
If a brother can go to the blue of the Bible and grab the word waters, because not only did creatures come from the waters, we also reproduce by the way of the waters, which is semen.
Mm-hmm. And if you a woman, when your seed, meet her and they connect, it's a little light there, but the baby is in water for 9 months. You ever heard say, oh, I think my water finna break?
Yeah.
I done had a few, so I think my water finna break. So that's what that's going into, all right?
And how we was mentioning also, we made up 70% water.
Just like the earth.
I got it. Mayim.
Yep.
In a blue letter. Spell Mayim.
Strong's 8, 4325. My.
But it's Mayim. But it's Mayim in outline of the biblical usage.
Yeah, that's the Yiddish,
Yeah, right. That's there you go.
It's my yum. But you got it like let me see. Read this definition right here. Read this right here.
The Strong's definition, Mayim, dual of a primitive noun, water figuratively, juice by eponym, urine, semen, piss, wasting, water, course, flow, spring.
Right, the key word being semen, man. Because ultimately waters, represent semen. That's how we was able to multiply, man, by the way of sex. A man shooting his seed, which we talked about the seed earlier, into a woman. And that's how we ultimately multiply. That's how ultimately the creatures of the earth multiply.
Right.
By the way of sex.
That's it.
Which life comes out of the waters.
Verse 24, and the power said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and the creeping thing, and the beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so.
Right, so that's what the waters ultimately brought forth abundantly, man. We mentioned the different creatures, man, whales, cows, deers, and ultimately man being that creature also. They came out of the waters.
Verse 25.
Wait, read that verse 24 again.
Verse 24, and the power said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and the creeping thing, and the beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so.
Right, after his kind. Cows were cows, whales were whales, after his kind.
And the powers made the beast of the earth after his kind, and after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And the power saw that it was good. And the power said, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth.
Read it one more time, verse 26.
And the power said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth.
Right. So YAHAWASHI, the rest of the angels gave man order, gave man authority, gave man laws. So ultimately, as we read in talking about the fifth day, man, ultimately how man was a creature, because ultimately man, was like the other animals, like the lions, like the deers, for an example, man. Animals move off instinct, but ultimately what the YAHAWASHI and the angels gave man order.
Right.
Brother can grab me Sirach 17:1 and Wisdom of Solomon 9. Yep.
Sirach 17:1. The Lord Yahweh created man out of the earth and turned him into it again. He gave them few days and a short time, and power over the things therein.
Right. Power over the things that are therein, man. What is the power over the things therein? The animals, life itself, man. Right. Ultimately, what the YAHAWASHI and the angels gave man dominion to rule over the said things that was on the earth, animals, etc. And ultimately, what animals had the fear of man on them.
Right.
That's how Noah was able. Side note, that's how Noah was able to get the animals in the ark. Because what animals had, fear of man on them, man. Man was made to rule over the animals, man.
Right.
And ultimately, man, fail, through sin. That's another lesson for another day. But
right.
Wisdom of Solomon 9:1, but I know it's more to that. I buy it.
Sirach 17:3. He endued them with strength by themselves, and made them according to his image, and put the fear of man upon all flesh.
Right, the fear of man.
Sirach 17:4. And put the fear of man upon all flesh.
Right, the fear of man upon all flesh. So ultimately, even going back then when man had dominion, a lion wouldn't attack a man.
Right.
A snake wouldn't bite a man. A bee wouldn't sting a man. Ultimately, man had dominion over the animals. They had the fear. The animals had the fear of man on them.
That came through sin.
Yep.
And that's line backing off what our woman just said. How the fear of the animals, man they went straight to the ark. Noah fed them. They didn't try to do nothing, harm Noah any kind of way. Like he said, that came process over time, over sin, over corruption,
Okay. I got one real quick. Let me see. This is the book of Isaiah, just talking about the fear of man, because that's actually coming back, to the children of YAHAWASHI. This is the book of Isaiah 11. And let me see. I'm gonna start at verse 6 and I'm gonna read down Isaiah 11:6. It says, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. It says, and the cow and the bear shall feed their young, one shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp. It says, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. So ultimately, what you're gonna have our children playing with the animals and things like that.
This is in the kingdom now. Don't try this. Don't try this now.
Hey, but if I may make this point, because like you mentioned earlier, the elect is gonna get this power because it says you're gonna be the brothers
in
gonna
league with the animals.
Yep, exactly right.
Job, we're gonna be in league with the animals.
Job 5:23. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee.
So they ain't gonna do no harm to you, man.
Right.
So ultimately what? Because ultimately what? The Lord is gonna bless us men, with spiritual powers in this time and ultimately into the kingdom, man. What? The animals is gonna have the fear of man on them again, man. As we're reading in that Genesis, man, ultimately when the angels, YAHAWASHI and the angels gave man dominion, it was to rule over all the creatures on the earth, man.
Right.
To rule everything that's on the earth.
I got this.
The fear of man. You got it.
Wisdom of Solomon 9:1. O God of my fathers and Lord of mercy, who has made all things with thy word, and ordained man through thy wisdom, that he should have dominion over the creatures which thou hast made, and order the world according to equity and righteousness, and execute judgment with an upright heart.
Right, execute judgment with an upright heart, because ultimately what Yahawah and the angels ultimately did, they made man upright.
Right.
You know, giving dominion over the animals, you know, things of that nature, gave man order. Because animals move off instinct. So ultimately when Yahawah and the angels gave man order, gave man dominion to ultimately to think and things like that. Did you read that in Sirach 17 or finish that when it talks about the cognition?
Sirach 17 and 5. They received the use of the 5 operations of the Lord, and in the 6th place he imparted them understanding, and in the 7th speech, an interpreter of the cogitations thereof. Counsel and a tongue and eyes, ears and a heart gave he them to understand.
And exactly right, different from the animals, because animals move off what? Instinct.
Instinct.
You know, but man can actually reason.
Right.
You know, understand reasons, you know, speech,
communicate.
Communicate. That's something different from what the animals ultimately, you know, can do. You know, instinct. Because ultimately, what, going back prior to before the angels, Yahawah and the angels gave men ultimately what, dominion, order. We was like the other animals,
right?
You know, moving off instinct. But ultimately, what, Yahawah and the angels gave man order to ultimately what, to be upright. You know, to understand, to speak, to communicate. You know, to be upright.
Because the animals can communicate, but they can't form speech.
Right. But the animals, like he said, they move off instinct. Now, I don't know. You know, they sense when things are wrong, though. You know, because my dad, rest in peace, when he passed, man, our dog howled for almost 2 weeks, just woo, woo, because he knew my father had passed. And this is the instinct we're talking about in the animals, okay? Yep. So they can sense when things, you know, but y'all got it.
They got spirits.
Continuing
at Genesis 1:27. So the powers created man in their own image, and in the image of God created he him, and male and female he them.
Right. So ultimately, what the powers gave Yahawah and the rest of the angels gave man order. You know, the image after the angels. You know, being upright. You know, able to understand. You know, the brother Ibaya read in that Sirach 17. You know, the connotations of men. You know, and it says what? It says, created he him, male and female created he them. Right, male and female. You know, it's 2 genders. And what do Esau Edom do? You know, it's 67 genders.
Right.
You know, you can be binary. You can cut off your rod. A woman can actually, you know, taste some stuff. It's two genders, man, male and female, man. You know how the Lord designed it. You know, Yahawah gave, you know, Yahawah shot a blueprint. Yahawah shot created the angels. Ultimately, what, to create everything in its natural order, man.
Right, and everything that this Edomite did, this wicked, who, you know, Job 9:24, who has dominion over the earth right now. Nothing he does is in rhythm. It's in harmony with Yahawah BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. It's clean contrary. It's the opposite.
And can I just make this point real quick? I was talking to the brother Ibaya, you know, when picking up the brother Jeremiah, but whatnot. How everything, you know, as Genesis is described, you know, the sun, the question of the sun and the moon and things like that. And what does Bill Gates want to do? He want to destroy the sun.
Right.
And ultimately, what does this devil want to do when it says seeds grow and stuff? He want to make everything seeds.
Right.
You know, so everything that we're ultimately reading through Genesis, the first chapter, you know, talking about the creation, ultimately everything that Esau Edom does, he does the opposite, man.
Right.
You know, hey, it can't be male and female. It got to be all these different type of
male and male, female and female.
Yeah.
Verse 28, and the powers blessed them, and the powers said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth.
Right, so man was ultimately, when given that dominion, they were supposed to rule over everything, man.
Verse 29, and the power said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat.
Right. So because going back to the beginning, man, hey, this was man's meat, man. Before actually we started really eating meat and things like that. Our meat was what? Like vegetation.
Right. And that's a confirmation on that in our dietary law in Leviticus chapter 11. You know, it tells you that also, you know. So,
clean from the unclean.
Right.
You know? So ultimately back then, this was man's meat, you know, vegetation, fruits, vegetables.
Verse 30, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that it creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so.
Right. It says every green herb for me, because this was man's food. You know, this is really all that we ate. You know, fruits, vegetations. You know, from the gardens. You know,
and everything grew of itself.
Yeah.
Verse 31. And the powers saw everything that they had made, and behold, it was very good. And in the evening, in the morning, was the sixth day.
Right, the sixth consecutive year of that 1,000-year period, which is 6,000 years, man. And we know on the seventh day they rested. It took 6,000 years to ultimately to create the whole earth. Right. And with that being said, I grabbed that Second Ezra 6, because with the Second Ezra 6, it recounts everything we just read going to the beginning of creation. I'm gonna tell you where you can start at, brother. This is the book of grab Second Ezra 6 and start at
It's in the 40s.
Yeah, but we can actually start up, you know, going back to the first day. Start at verse 38, Second Ezra 6 and 38.
This is Second Ezra 6 and 38, and it reads, And I said, O Lord, thou spakest from the beginning of the creation, even the first day, and saidest thus, Let heaven and earth be made, and thy word was a perfect work.
It says, and thy word was a perfect work, because we know that what Yahawah, you know, the Heavenly Father gave Yahawah the blueprint ultimately to set up everything. You know, Yahawah created the rest of the angels, which is the 144,000, which is the first fruits, and he ultimately created everything. So when you're reading the Second Ezra 6, it's recounting everything we read in the Genesis, the first chapter.
Verse 39, and then was the Spirit, and darkness and silence were on every side. The sound of man's voice was not yet formed.
I know we read that Jeremiah earlier, but a brother can grab it again, Jeremiah 4:23. Because ultimately, this is the beginning of creation, man. Because ultimately, what? You know, everything was in its element form, going back to the beginning of Genesis, the first chapter.
Because I got it. Jeremiah 4:23. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light.
Right, so this is going back to the beginning of creation, Genesis 1:1, which Second Ezra, the 6th chapter, is ultimately reinstating. That's right. You know, everything was in its elemental stage.
That's right. Verse 40. Then commandest thou a fair light to come forth of thy treasures, that thy work might appear.
Right, the illumination of the elements. You know, which was the first form of light, the illuminating of the elements.
Upon the second day, thou madest the spirit of the firmament, and commandedest is to part asunder, and to make a division betwixt the waters, that the one part might go up, and the other remain beneath.
Right, so we was talking about earlier with the ozone layer.
The firmament.
The firmament, yeah, right. The ozone layer, you know, which the so-called white man call it the Van Allen belt, you know. Ultimately, what? Separating, you know, the space above and ultimately everything under the earth, man. Giving that separation, you know, which is what? The firmament, the ozone layer.
Upon the third day, thou didst command that the waters should be gathered in the seventh part of the earth. 6 parts hast thou dried up and kept them, to the intent that of these some being planted of Yahawah and tilled might serve thee.
Right, the dry land, you know, ultimately the elements forming to create the dry land, as we, you know, read in that Genesis, the first chapter.
For as soon as thy word went forth, the work was made. For immediately there was great and innumerable fruit, and many and divers pleasures for the taste, and flowers of unchangeable color, and odors of wonderful smell. And this was done the third day.
And exactly right. You know, herbs, you know, having seed after his kind.
Seed, right.
You know, things of that nature. So it's recounting everything we read in Genesis, the first chapter. You know, so this is what, the third day? Which is what? The third period of 1,000 years, which is what, 3,000 years?
That's right, bro. And upon the fourth day, thou commandest that the sun would shine, and the moon give her light, and the stars should be in order.
Right, the greater form of light to rule the day, and the greater form of light to rule the night. The sun and the moon, you got the stars, you know. We're talking about the lights, And ultimately, those said lights was put in the firmament.
Genesis 1 and 14.
Yeah, Genesis 1 and 14. Ultimately, what the sun to rule the day,
Right.
and the moon to rule the night. You got the stars out. It's like a nightlight. How you got the nightlight in the kitchen. That's what the stars is, man. And ultimately, when you turn on that big light in the kitchen,
And the moon too.
yeah,
Right.
Lesser light to rule the night.
Yeah, and they're all forms of light.
That's beautiful.
Man, God. Verse 46, and gavest them a charge to do service unto man that was to be made. Upon the 5th day thou settest unto the 7th part, where the waters were gathered, that it should bring forth living creatures, fowls and fishes. And so it came to pass.
And we ultimately explain in that Romans 8 that man is also a creature, man. Before what? Before man was made upright, given order, dominion, from the angels, YAHAWASHI and the angels. Ultimately, what? A man is considered a creature.
Created by Yahweh, right? For the dumb water and without life brought forth living things at the commandment of Yahweh, that all people might praise thy wondrous works.
Right. So we all came from the waters, man. Every living creature came from the waters, man. And how ultimately did we multiply? By the way of the water, sex. Semen. A man shooting his seed into what? A woman. Sex. That's how we multiply.
And again, how can we praise thy wondrous works when you've taken the sea cleaners, the water cleaners, the shrimp, the lobsters, the scallops, the things that keep your water clear enough to see what's in it. Leave it to Esau to constantly disturb what the Lord has put the work in perfectly.
Well, just like he say, we are recreated through sex, right? Now this man, through his technology, he take the semen from the man. You ain't got to have sex no more, right? They can
incubate.
God, that's a robot. Yes, sir. God, you know where I'm going with that. Yep. God, yep. But this is what we're dealing with right here, man. This is the wicked, okay, in all his glory. And this is what he does, man. Is no rhythm or harmony with the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. Everything that he does is clean contrary, and I guess that's why everything that he gets is on the left-hand side too, okay?
Judgment too.
God.
Verse 49, then didst thou ordain 2 living creatures, the one thou callest Enoch,
right, which is man,
God, and the other Leviathan.
Right, you got the sea beasts, the fishes, the whales. You got Leviathan also, the great sea beast.
You're about to see him in a minute too.
And we mentioned that earlier with they're showing how spools, 30 whales, killer whales are all literally running from something. And you start to say, man, the Lord is revisiting the plan in which he made. Sure. So here come the things that, this man don't want to speak of because it would go with scripture, man. So yeah, that Leviathan, brother. Yes, sir. And did separate the one from the other for the 7th part, namely, where the water was gathered together, might not hold them both.
Right. So you had man walking upon dry land, and you ultimately had the fishes, the whales, ultimately in the seas. Leviathan, separating them both.
And unto Enoch thou gavest 1 part, which is dried up the 3rd day, that he should dwell in the same part wherein are 1,000 hills.
Right. Man dwelling on dry land.
In the earth.
The earth. Yeah.
God. But unto Leviathan thou gavest the 7th part, namely, the moist, and has kept him to be devoured, of whom thou wilt and when.
Right, Leviathan, ultimately, the great sea beasts. You got the whales and stuff also in the seas and things like that.
Man,
and also it talks about Leviathan, a little sign. It talks about Leviathan. What's that, Job, the 43rd chapter? Or is that 42nd chapter?
It's right up in there.
Yeah, somewhere around there, But ultimately, you got man dwelling on dry land. You got Leviathan and the rest of the sea beasts in the ocean, the seas.
Verse 53, upon the 6th day thou gavest commandment unto the earth, that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things.
Right. So that was pretty much the point. Upon the 6th day it gave his commandments unto the earth, before thee it shall bring forth beast, cattle, and every and creepy things, because we all came from the waters.
That's
you know,
Man.
we multiply through the waters also by the way of sex.
Man.
Water, semen. And ultimately what? YAHAWASHI and the angels ultimately giving dominion to men to rule over those said things.
Huh?
It's no accident that 70% of your body is made of water. 70% of the earth is made up of water. Okay.
We came from the waters. Ultimately, our semen, is water.
Is water, right?
And we're ultimately, as the baby is dwelling within the incubator of the mother, it's
Right.
in water.
It's in water, right?
And when we come out, our body is 70% water.
So yeah, this is it, right? That's beautiful. Yep.
And as the elders say, man, when you know it because you've been through it. And when she says my water's breaking, man,
Right.
that means life is on the way.
On the way.
Man, come on, brother. Come on. All praises to Yahawah.
And that was pretty much the point. And that was really Genesis 1, the breakdown. But brothers, had anything to add before we close out? We all good, Elder?
Yeah, I'm all good.
So with that being said, we hope this lesson was edifying. We end up giving all praise and glory to
YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Rakakadash.
I want to say the elders and the apostles of great millstone taught us the truth, and salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. Lord, when we hope this lesson was edifying. Till next time, Kwame Yasharallah, Shalom, the Baba Ball.
Y'all, my heart, brothers.
That was good.
Yes, sir. Well done.
That was a good breakdown.
Yes, it was.